welcome. This is Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm so glad that you could join me today. I have a fabulous guest today, and we're just going to get going right away. We're going to have a ton of questions, and we've got Karen, who's also my co-host, but we have her here today in her legitimate role. She is running for governor. If you remember, she ran for governor the last time round. She's running again. I don't think you've ever not run for something or helped out the people of New Hampshire or fought for the people of New Hampshire. I've known you 30-something years, and I don't ever not remember you not having a cause and working with people. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Jocelyn, for having me. This is always so much fun.
I know it is. I can't wait till at some point. So when you're governor, I'm going to, full disclosure, I want to promise. So when you're governor, we still have to have our Together show.
Oh, absolutely.
You heard it here. So yeah, we're not going to give up because I think we need to do Truth, Justice, and Me again.
I think so, too.
That was a fun show.
That was a lot of fun.
That was. We did a lot of information. So as I said, we're going to do some rapid fire questions and just get people to know a little bit more about you, what your feelings and thoughts are on different subjects. It's one thing when you're at a grassroots meeting or a speech or a debate. There's set questions. It's the same old stuff.
Right.
And they don't really get to know you, and I don't think that's fair. And I always have conversations. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I know you are. So why are you running for governor?
We need a constitutional approach to our government. Government is supposed to be taking care of running its day-to-day issues when you're talking about making sure that we have roads and avenues to conduct business, making sure that when we're conducting business that it's fair to all concerned, making sure that the state is protected, and making sure that the laws that are constitutional are being enforced.
So when you say constitutional, do you mean New Hampshire constitutionally?
I mean both. So you've got the New Hampshire Constitution, which is the law of the land for New Hampshire. But then the colonies got together and formed the United States, and they said we need them to be able to do something that's overseeing all of the colonies, so the colonies all work together. And in doing so, they created the U.S. Constitution, which becomes the law of the land for the whole country. And so when we're talking about specifically for the state of New Hampshire, I'm talking about using the New Hampshire Constitution because it is, compared to other constitutions, it is really a premier document. And it protects our Bill of Rights, our rights given to us by God, and it delineates what they are and says to the government that is supposed to be just organizing the rest of how the state operates, how communities conduct their business between communities and so forth. That's all that they do, that they're not dictating to you what you should be doing. Individuals are responsible for their own activities.
Correct.
And so the government should not be infringing on that and telling you how to conduct yourself.
Correct.
Unless what you're doing could cause harm to others. And so when we're driving down the road, we've got certain laws that apply to the way that you're driving so that you're not infringing on somebody else's ability to drive
safely. I love that. All right. And you already answered my next question, so we'll skip that one. In your opinion, and from what you've heard from the citizens of New Hampshire, what is the state of New Hampshire?
It's pretty sad because people are feeling that the government is telling them what to do. They're feeling like when it comes to parents' rights, parents are being called domestic terrorists for going in and saying, I think something's wrong, or I don't want my child to be necessarily forced to wear a facial covering. I don't want my child to be forced to get a vaccination. There are things that are being infringed upon our individual rights and responsibilities. And I mean, it even goes down to licensure. So there are so many different licenses that are issued in the state of New Hampshire by the government, which is none of their business. It should be up to the individual organization or vocation to make those decisions. So a hairdresser might be going to cosmetology school because she's dealing with hair coloring and in addition to hair cutting. But then you've got the person who all they do is braid hair. They shouldn't have to do all of the other things that the state requires of them.
Correct.
But if it was just up to the cosmetology community, they would probably say, no, we can give you a certificate and say that you're fully qualified
To braid hair.
Yeah.
I love that. As far as state of the state, as governor, would you be taking every penny of federal money that you possibly, because I've heard from a few people that we pay quite a bit more than any other state, so they are clawing back every penny because we deserve to have our money back. Well, here's my thought process. You took the federal tax money out of our paychecks, sent it to Washington. They did whatever they wanted with it, again, without our authority. And then they decide they're going to send it back if a state wants it, but there's strings attached. And I'm hearing from all the know-it-alls that there's no strings attached. Well, that screams to me, well, you're breaking a contract. I don't want you in charge of toilet cleaning.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on this?
So roughly 50% of the money in our budget is given to us by federal dollars. Every time we accept a federal dollar, there is a requirement, which is why on September 29th, people gathered at the Executive Council meeting to protest the $27 million that were potentially going to be accepted and eventually were accepted. But at that time, people had looked at the contract and said, look, it says at this end that you will comply with the Secretary of Health and Human Services at the federal level if they want to quarantine, in essence, quarantine any group of people because they're not following what we want them to do. So it's a dictatorial kind of thing. It's similar to the agreement that we had as British citizens with the Crown, King George. And when King George was violating that contract with us and stepping on our rights and taxing us without telling us about it and coming in and wanting to take our trees for his use without the consent of the governed, then we rebelled. And we have a responsibility to do that according to our Declaration of Independence.
Yep. We have the right to protest.
Absolutely. And we have the duty to do that.
Correct.
When the government itself becomes tyrannical. And with 21 executive orders and 90 emergency orders, you don't think that we're under tyranny.
We are. And correct me if I'm wrong, the executive branch, which includes the Executive Council, does not have the authority to request federal money nor disperse it. Yet we have seen this happen time and time again. That is in the, not realm, but that's the legislative branch's job. But yet we have seen in the last, very obviously, in the last 3 years, the three branches of government in our states, in all 51 states, not staying in their lane, no separation of branches of government. We have the executive branch, which is your governor, passing executive laws, emergency orders. People, that is not for you and me. That is for their administration, people that take a paycheck from the state. But yet, we're seeing this. It's an executive order. It's an emergency order. And everybody goes, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am.
It's now the law of the land, right? Yeah. No.
It's not, is it?
It's not. No.
No.
The Constitution is the law of the land that says that your rights are protected from an overreach by a governing body. And that if you look at the federal Constitution, it very clearly says in Bill of Rights number 10, very clearly says anything that's not delineated, that means anything that is not written in the federal Constitution, is left to the states and the people. The same thing happens in the state. If it's not in the if it's not protected by the Bill of Rights, then probably you might be able to do it. But the number one question every legislator should be asking, and every person out here who is going to interview your candidates should be asking, when you have this bill in front of you, is it allowed by the Constitution? Is it something that we should even be doing at the legislative level?
Or is it repugnant
to the Constitution?
To the Constitution.
Right.
And we need to be holding every single one of these politicians, legislators, Senate, Congress, dog catcher, school board.
Anybody that takes an oath.
Anybody that takes an oath, which is a conversation for another show. What does an oath really mean, and what are you swearing to? Who are you swearing to?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is even bigger. So on that, the point you brought up, that the federal government needs to stay in its lane as far as its constitution, trade,
right,
defense,
right,
and infrastructure.
Right.
3 things. Not education.
No.
Not health and human services.
Right.
Not EPA. None of that. That is in the, what is the word I want? Peruse? There's a word that's flying in. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Purview.
Purview, thank you. It's a P word. Purview of the state.
Right.
So we have a lot of people running around just screaming bloody murder, and they want to tear down the world because the Supreme Court of the United States did its job for the first time in decades and sent Roe versus Wade, the decision-making, back to the state. They didn't say you couldn't have an abortion. They didn't say, anything to that effect. They simply said, not my, this is not my decision. This
is not in my cat box.
Correct. This is not for us to decide. It was always supposed to be at the state level.
Right.
They sent it back to the state, so the decision sits with the state. So if you don't vote and you don't pay attention and you don't talk to your legislators and you assume they think like you think, you need to get involved.
Right.
If you want it, if you want abortions, then you need to be making sure with your legislators and everybody that they understand that and that the Constitution is amended. Because guess what? It's not a constitutional right. And worse, I'm sure you know, but did you know that that whole thing of Roe was a lie? She was never raped. She was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell this story, which made legislation based on a lie, and nobody has a problem with this.
Well, not only that, but Dr. Nathanson, who was the physician that later testified that it was all made up. So the problem was, at that point, every governor in this country should have stood up and said, this is not your purview. You should not be infringing on our responsibilities at our state level. And the state should be then deciding what are they supposed to do. Now, if we look at the New Hampshire Constitution, Part 1, Article 2, says that we will be defending and enjoying life. So if we're defending life, we cannot be allowing for life to be destroyed, no matter where it's located.
Correct. Correct. I'll leave it there because we want to get through a lot of questions. But the power is in the states, and the federal government gave the power back to the states, so it's now in your hands, people. You have more power than you know, so quit whining and crying and screaming. For God's sake, stop screaming and put some clothes on. Just saying.
Well, the other thing is take the time to go online at nh.gov and go over to the governmental thing and pull up the laws and rules of the state and find your state constitution and read it. And if you want, you can order this book. It's $10, and it has the very, very first 1783 Constitution and today's Constitution, and you can see how things have been changed in it.
And when you say changed, good, thank you for bringing that up. The only way you can change the Constitution is not by wishing, praying, hoping, drinking till you think it's true. The only way to change the New Hampshire Constitution was with an amendment, not a rule,
Not a rule.
not a mandate,
Not a law.
not a regulation, not a policy.
Not a law.
No, not a law. Thank you. You must pass, and it has to be voted. It has to be passed with 2/3.
Right.
And we, the citizens, I'm not going to say people anymore because we've got a real problem with citizenship going on here. We, the citizens, make that decision. You want it so, then get an amendment. Till then, zip it.
Yep.
I mean,
Very
it's
true.
that simple.
Well, and so we have an example when it comes to our voting, and one of the areas where our voting laws are in conflict with the Constitution is same-day registration. And it's in conflict with the federal Constitution because the federal Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but at any rate, the very first part of the Constitution that deals with how things are supposed to be run specifically says that the election of our senators and our representatives is left to the states. And it does have this little caveat in there that the Congress can come in and make some changes. Well, I argue that the Congress violated the Constitution when it turned around and said we had to have this motor voter law. And at that time is when our state delegation said, no, we'll go for same-day registration. Well, why didn't they turn around and say, that's not your purview?
Correct.
You're stepping outside of the boundaries of what you should be doing. And Governor Merrill and Judd Gregg should have been well enough aware of what the Constitution says
To push
to
back.
push back,
Yeah.
but they didn't. And so this is a problem we have right now. And then to further the problem further down the line, our own state legislature continues to define resident, continues to define student, and completely obliterates everything that's
What
already
it says in the Constitution, which has not been amended. And you haven't amended the Constitution, so resident, inhabitant are clearly defined. They did not make an amendment, so therefore anything, definitions that they've changed are illegal and unconstitutional. And everybody just goes merrily on their way. You go get your Dunkin' Donuts, you go get your Aroma Joes, whatever is the flavor of the day, and you're happy. But meanwhile, people are passing laws saying that it's constitutional and it's not, and you're happy with this.
Well, so one of the things that I would like to see as governor, I can't mandate it, I can't legislate it, but I can use the bully pulpit and I can inform the people and encourage them to demand out of their own legislators that when we require our students to have civics, history, Constitution in their schooling, in their curriculum, and they have to supposedly pass a test for it, why not also require that before you take an oath of office, you have to demonstrate that you have a working knowledge of our state Constitution?
I agree. Everybody needs to be pushing for that. No oaths of office, no taking positions in the government until you've passed the basic knowledge and you even understand, because guess what? There's an awful lot of that don't know there's a state constitution.
Right.
And they love to say, there's no such thing, we're a U.S. citizen. Actually, if you were born in this state, you're a New Hampshire citizen. If you were born in another state, you're a citizen of that state. And the only people that are U.S. citizens are people that are born in a territory, Washington, D.C., and even when you become a naturalized citizen, where you swear the oath is where you're a citizen. And everybody goes, no, you're a U.S. citizen. No, you're not.
No.
I am. I was born in Washington, D.C., so I actually have 2 citizenships legitimately.
Right. But you're also supposed to renounce your citizenship in your other state
If you come to a new one. Yep.
To New Hampshire. So when you come to New Hampshire, you need to demonstrate that you are going to assimilate into our state, and that you are really not just a resident, but you are an inhabitant here, that you are going to make this your home, and that you're going to try to do everything you can for the state.
Right. Well, you listen to various media platforms, and people say, well, if you're leaving New York, don't bring your garbage here, which is very true. You're moving someplace else. Don't bring your blue or your excessive or your progressive or your communist, whatever it can be. It's a plethora of words. Don't bring that here to your state. Well, here's your argument. Are you a citizen of the state where you moved or you reside? Have you become a citizen? Have you sworn the oath? If they haven't, you shouldn't be voting.
Not
it's
only
that simple.
You shouldn't have a say in what goes on in the government.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So in your local community, at the planning board, at the zoning board, at the city council, at the town council, you should not have a voice if you have not become a citizen of the state.
Correct. And a total investment,
Right.
Skin in the game.
Right.
All right, let me ask you this. So, where's this other question? What is your opinion on these Diebold, AccuVote, Dominion, purchased from Canada 43 years ago, originally a lease, machines?
Can I tell you that you don't like them? Because, first of all, they're unconstitutional. We've never amended the New Hampshire Constitution, which was passed in 1783. The only amendment that's been made to that particular law, it's Part 2, Article 32. The only amendment that's been made there is that it gives the town 5 days, I think it is, to get their information to the Secretary of State to demonstrate that they've certified those votes out of their
5
community.
days.
5 days.
Not that night,
Not
the next morning,
well,
5 days.
yeah. But originally it was that night, and still in most communities, it is a police officer that takes it to the Secretary of State's office. So the Diebold machines are the AccuVote machines. Go look up the documentary Kill, Chill, the cyber attack on our elections. Go look it up, watch it. Harry Hertzie, who was the authority supposedly for our Wyndham audit, is the primary person there. And the thing that struck me completely was that he was at a cyber conference. Yeah, and he was. They were using the AccuVote machines, the Dominion, Diebold, AccuVote machines, as their challenge. Can we break into these things? Do we need to have a hard wire? No, you do not have to have a hard wire. In fact, one of the groups was sitting here saying, I got into the other machine, and all of a sudden, across the room, the machine goes black. And the guys over there are saying, what happened? No hard wire. It was just done through Bluetooth.
Oh, but you can't go on the internet. You can't go online with those machines.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can. Go back to one of my shows with Ann Kopp, where she directly had a conversation with the town clerk, and I'm not going to pretend to know all the words. It does go online. Because guess what? How do you think the Secretary of State gets all the results so quickly?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So unless you're going to amend the Constitution to match the technology of today, people, it stands as it was written. It is interpreted as it was written. It cannot be understood any other way.
And it is up to those who have taken an oath to office to uphold the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire to enforce anything that is legal and goes along with the Constitution of the state. But if it is repugnant to the state, as has the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Speaker, and the President of the lower house, and the governor have been notified, it is up to them to stop the machines from being used because they're repugnant to the Constitution. conflict with the Constitution.
Direct conflict, and they've been notified multiple times.
Right.
And they still break the law and allow the unconstitutional machines to be used. People, you must fight this. We must stop it for the primary in September, and absolutely for November. I'll give you an address at the bottom of the show where you can reach out. And in the meanwhile, what would be, before we go, what would be the first thing, maybe first two things you would do as governor?
One of the things I want to do is I want to know how much of the federal dollars that are coming into this state could be, have to be complied with. And then the rest of it, we've got to figure out how do we divorce ourselves from that federal money, because it's the federal requirements that are forcing our schools to teach critical race theory, social emotional learning, and to prevent the teachers and the administration from telling parents if their 12-year-old decides they don't want you to know about what they're feeling or how they're acting. So that's number one, is to find out how are we tied to this. And number two is, you know, we as a state need to get back to what our founders held very, very dear, and that is our relationship with God. And God, family, and country is what the very basis of our opportunities are there. The reason that we are the longest operating country in the world under our Constitution is because we put God first.
I love it. Yeah. And we are a republic, not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. So for all the politicians, federal and state, we are a constitutional republic. There is no democracy. Stop throwing that word around because it's being used incorrectly.
It is. It is. A lot of words are. And you need to, when you're talking to people, ask them questions.
Absolutely. Right. Don't be offended.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know you have to run off to another important meeting, so I hope to have you back again before September. Have a great day, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you. See you next time.